This is some tips on cutting glass. I've taught a lot of students stained glass classes, and one of the big questions that comes up is, how do you know that your glass cutter is sharp, and how do you know when you're pressing down too hard or not hard enough? So a couple things bring to light on that. First of all, this cutter is on the verge of having to be replaced. This is the cutter head, and it's a little carbide wheel. And this little wheel here, I'll be right back. The little wheel has to be kept in kerosene or oil all the time. I just use a can like this. I put a sponge in the bottom, and I put oil in it, any kind of oil. I don't care if it's used from your lawnmower. It doesn't much make a difference. And that's a sponge in the bottom of this can, and I always keep my cutters in there. So about every second, third time that I cut glass, I always dip it into the can and then approach my glass to cut it. I hold it like I would a pencil, like I would write, or just back off a little bit. As you can see the wear in the barrel here of this brass cutter, I hold my cutter close to my fingers close to the cutter head. Some people use the back of the barrel. I don't see value in that, nor do I see you cutting in any type of accuracy. So one thing you want to be aware of is about cutting the glass is the little noise that it makes. It'll be a high-pitched noise, and I'll just over-dramatize that. It's not absolutely critical that you hear that noise, although it is a noise that many glass artists are familiar with in knowing that they've pressed down hard enough. Not all glass is going to give you that noise. Let's see if this one does. This one does. But not all glass is going to give you that noise. Some glass is very silent, and you don't think you've cut hard enough. And when you try to retrace your cutting line, it doesn't work. The glass generally has a mind of its own and goes where it wants to. That's because glass picks the path of least resistance. You can never go over your same prior cut and expect it to break like this. Now, when I look at my glass from the side, I can tell that it's cut really well. You can't see this on this video, but if you look along the edge, you'll see tiny little scallops. If you've got a clean edge, a right pressure, and a good cutter head, your glass should be fairly smooth along that edge. I'm not going to touch that with my fingers and cut myself, but along this edge, as you look and examine, you'll see if you've got a clean edge or not. This one's really clean. You can't see any scallops. I'll push this aside. When you press too hard, and I call it white knuckling, you'll see the fingers. It's as though you're going like this. I'm over-dramatizing, but it's as though you're doing this. And you press down too hard, now you can really see the scalloped edge. It is absolutely evident. This looks like it was cut out with pinking shears. It is so torn up along these edges. Many times as I watch people press too hard, many times the glass does not even cooperate. That was not a really good break. It didn't go clean out to the end. There's all kinds of trauma going on this texture of this glass with all these little shards that just popped off and all the scalloped edges. Two things: either I press down too hard, or my cutter is not very sharp, or both, a combination of both. So I'm going to go back, cut very lightly. Got a clean edge. So more than likely it was the pressure that I was putting on it, because I got a clean edge. So that suggests to me that my cutter is not really the culprit here. Just a couple things to keep in mind. If you're pressing too hard, you're going to know it in the cuts of your glass. And if your cutter is dull, you're also going to see that show up in the cuts of your glass. So two things to keep in mind is the pressure, the amount of pressure you're trying to apply to your cutter, and whether your cutter head is sharp or not, or dull. And this head here, this is a Toyo CT10 head. It's pretty close to being ready to replace. I do thousands of cuts on one of these cutter heads. And in a future video, I'm going to show you, this is a cut that most glass people would not attempt, but the purist would. This is something that most people would want to cut with a Taurus ring saw. I cut this out simply, easily, with this cutter. And it's clear. I don't know if I'm being able to show it. If I keep moving it around, you'll see by reflection. But that's a pretty difficult cut. I break glass every now and then as well, where it wants to go, where it wants to break across. I'm guilty of that. But when you know how to use the corners of your pliers, you'll learn how to make these type of cuts easily and effortlessly. So thanks for watching. Look at the rest of my videos. Thank you.